bets in 5 minutes, where we went a whopping 1-4 last night. Do we even deserve a mic slide after that? This is the only thing I own that was made in France. It's French basketball day today in the NBA, so we might as well celebrate it. 5 bets in 5 minutes. One is going to at least center around this game because, look, it's an early game. We're not going to just drain this entire video with 5 bets in 5 minutes with France. That can't happen. Thumbs up, subscribe. That can happen. That has to happen in order for us to start. We can't start unless that happens. And now we're 40 seconds in, and we begin. Look at that. We're getting really tight with our time. There was a mandate from above. 45 seconds in. Let's begin with one of the few, if not two, right, individuals with French heritage playing in this game between the Bulls and the Pistons in France. I don't care about the spread. I don't care about the total. I don't care about anything other than Killian Hayes dropping more than 14 points. In fact, 13.5 points, but I'll get 16. I'll get 18. If you wanted a ladder and you can shop for that ability, this would be the guy to do it. Absolutely love the local angle here. And you've got two just struggling basketball teams. One really bad and the other just bad. So it's not like the Bulls are coming into this game, all right, man, we need this playoff push. Detroit is just equally as bad on the road. So I think we have a shot here to play the local angle more so than anything else. All right, let's keep it moving here because I want to go to rebounds in the NBA specifically. That's been good to us, right? Let's keep it dropping here. Keep it dropping. Kyrie's questionable. Questionable on the night. If we can get Kyrie in without Kevin Durant, and
my buddy got this from me. He lives in South Philly, and he grabbed a couple. This was before the Super Bowl. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL quarter marathon matchup show. I don't know. We're down to 4 games, divisional round weekend. Got some good ones on our hand today. And more than anything, happy to have you guys with us. We're breaking it all down, top to bottom, game by game. That's what we do here. And as you know, what we say every week, if you don't have time, maybe you're busy, family life, you got a demanding job, you've got other shit going on in your life. All you need is this 1 hour today to get you set, prepped, and ready heading into Saturday and Sunday for the divisional round. So let's do it. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D on the Twitters, joined as always by Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. What's good, brother?
Hey, so happy to be here. And let's not forget, the divisional round is often the best football we get. Last year, who can forget that unbelievable KC Buffalo game? Cincinnati and Buffalo are going to play. 3 other good matchups. This is going to be a really fun weekend.
Absolutely. Wow. Alec Baldwin charged with involuntary manslaughter, huh?
Oh, here we go. Wow.
Yeah, he just ran someone over on the street.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. It's from the scene of Rust. No, we shouldn't joke.
Oh, shouldn't. No. But
hey, we love you guys being here with us every single day, every single week, I should say. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below. We try and read and respond to all, at the very least, read all of them. man, I went down a rabbit hole on our comments from yesterday's show, Matt, because Ben and I got super sidetracked. We waited till the end of the show and then spent 25 minutes talking about whether you'd rather fight a hippo in a swimming pool or a silverback gorilla in a UFC octagon, and it got out of control.
Both are going to result in horrific injuries, but what would you rather? What did you decide?
The hippo. And people think I'm crazy for that, but I'm not.
You're getting chopped in half, dude.
No, when I run out of stamina, because I'll dodge him, I'll push my legs off the pool, shoot out, try and get on his back and gouge his eyes out. If that doesn't work and it's over, I'm just sticking my head inside of his jaws. Call it a night.
Okay. So it's about a quick exit if need be.
Everyone's acting like the gorilla would be a quick exit. He might rip your limbs off and just start munching on your fingers in front of you while you bleed out. But
he could be disinterested.
No. We qualified this with they're both out for blood.
Oh, no.
Like you're not going to. Ben said he'd try and make friends with there's no making friends. There's
no animal handling possible.
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Okay. The quick exit policy might be in play. I get it.
So
I can understand your logic.
This has been controversial, and I'm willing to accept whatever you have to say, Matt, whatever your decision is. But either way, we're dying.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so as long as we understand like the implied odds here, I respect all the pathways you want to take from there.
Exactly. Let's talk some football. And hey, if you're listening in podcast form, a rating and a review, all that stuff goes a long way for us. We appreciate you guys too, even if you're not here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and let's make it happen. All right. Jacksonville, Kansas City. Let's go. I told Ben yesterday, I might just be way off track here. I think the Chiefs could roll them in this game.
Of course they could.
But I think they will.
So ultimately, Patrick Mahomes is the best football player on earth. He proved it through every advanced metric you can find. And even some of the less advanced metrics, as well as the eye test. And I know Jacksonville has had a great ride. They have been a fantastic story. I said from the very beginning of the season that we would see consistent competence from this team. And you know what? We saw pretty much incompetence from the rest of the division. So here they are. They took one incompetent half from the Chargers to help them one round further. I think the road ends here. I still think we can get offensive players from the Jacksonville side because they're playing Patrick Mahomes and company. There's going to be a need for scoring. I would think it's almost a 10% chance this game is a running based sludge fest. There's just no chance there's not passing in this one, and that means Kirk, Jones, and Ingram are all viable, even if you just want them as a single run back option.
Oh, no doubt. I love Jacksonville pass catchers. I just think that they could be in a situation where they're forced to pass a lot.
It's going to be like 45 passes from Trevor Lawrence.
You would think so. And I know that Kansas City has not, done particularly well against the spread this year, and you could bring all that. But then you look at, like, if you think that the two of their last three games, they covered 9+ point spreads. So it is what it is. I mean, either way, I'm not saying this to dismiss playing Jacksonville pass catchers. I think we should definitely be looking at a lot of that. What I'm saying is I like them more than I like ETN in a spot like this, unless, they get out early and you want to talk about incompetence though, Matt. Play calling from Peterson was incompetent in the first half of that game. I'm screaming, run the football. Like I'm one of those, couch quarterback or couch coaches that's like run the football, but it was pick after pick, and Lawrence clearly couldn't get anything. Give the guy a little bit of a respite here. Give him something to lean on against the worst run defense in the league. And then what happens? Second half, they start to run the football, right? They ran the football a ton in the second half. ETN soars over 100 rushing yards, and they complete the comeback. So that was definitely a tale of two halves. But for me, Jacksonville. Christian Kirk, I like him a lot. I like Evan Ingram. I talked to Ben yesterday saying, stack this game, go Kelsey and Ingram with one in the flex. I don't mind that at all either. I think there's a ton of different ways you can attack Jacksonville's passing game, including Lawrence, even if they end up losing.
So there's now over 30 expected fantasy points per game when you combine the usage of Kirk, Jones, and Evan Ingram. So with the amount of passing that's available in this offense, multiple pass catchers are absolutely fine. And so I think the ownership, it might be too low right now. Like Evan Ingram right now has a leverage score of 2%, which is the second best among all tight ends on the main slate right now. There's going to be this much passing volume. That's great. And you know what? I will say this. ETN, as good of a player as he's been on a per rush basis, and with Kansas City still just being average in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position, I think he's a really good large field tournament play because this team has to score points in order to have any chance in this game. But the way that they somehow keep it close or even pull off the crazy upset is if ETN absolutely blows up. If they can keep this clock moving and just keep, 11-yard, 15-yard chunk plays, they can stop this Kansas City team. I don't think it's likely, but that is the one pathway I see. ETN is good enough.
I don't disagree with that at all. The only thing I hate is that they just don't involve him in the passing game. So he's not, you would think a guy like ETN should be game script proof, right? Because if he was, think about this. ETN, and I don't think I'm going to get any argument from you whatsoever. If ETN even had like a 12, 13% target share, you would not care what direction this game goes. He would be one of our top running backs on the slate by far if he could just see those, moderate amount of targets each week.
Yeah. And usage does shift a little bit sometimes in the playoffs, right? You want to see teams be more aggressive or just, more creative when they come out especially in that first 15 plays that are typically scripted. I would love to see that. Bottom line here is the simulations based on the usage that ETN had going into this game have him in the optimal lineup of the main slate on DraftKings a third of the time. He's a great play, as are these Jacksonville run back these receiving options, I should say. It gets tough for me though, when you're saying, can I play more than two of them? Right? Like, I don't think you can get to a place where I'm just completely stacking up Jaguars. As much as I'm saying there's some combined usage, I still think the baseline here is that the Chiefs roll and this team kind of gets held to 21 to 25 points.
Yeah. It feels that way for sure. That is insane though, that last week ETN ran 40 routes and had
that's enough.
Had one target on 40 routes.
Let's see, what is his? Yeah, that's just, you can't trust him when he's only getting, the most he's gotten in terms of targets is 3. All the way back to week 7, you have to look for more than 3 targets. So
I know. Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Talk about the opposite of someone like McKinnon on the other side.
I love McKinnon this week, man. The more I look into it, the more I interest. Jacksonville's allowed the second most receiving yards to running backs, the most targets, second most receptions. They haven't allowed him to get in the end zone, but this is the Chiefs we're talking about here. We've seen McKinnon do damage in the postseason, even when he wasn't really used in the regular season. I don't care if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is designated to return from the IR. There's no chance that he's coming in and stealing passing game work in a spot like this. I do like McKinnon this week. I got to tell you.
And it's an okay price at $6K. We have him in the optimal lineup about 16% of the time. So roughly half of the time that ETN is in there. But I see Larry C in there, who's a staple in these chats. What's up, man? But he's saying, just tell us which KC wide receiver will hit and don't be wrong. Could you imagine if you knew which one of these non-Travis Kelce Kansas City options were going to hit week to week, how much money you could make? This is so tough, though. We've been talking about it for weeks. McKinnon is a player with projections ahead of salary-based expectations. That's pretty much as good as we can hope. Same with Juju. Honestly, I hate to say it, same with Marcus Valdes-Scantling. I still think they're using Kadarius Toney in really interesting ways, to the point where he's used in high leverage situations, even though his usage and snap rate is not that high. And in a large field tournament, for a team that's implied for 30 points, you're not crazy to go to a player like Hardman or Justin Watson as a super low salary option. And we're bearing the lead here. Travis Kelce could still absolutely smash. 11.5 expected fantasy points per game since week 13. That is the most among all tight ends on the slate, with so many of the other big ones knocked out last round. You can play anyone attached to Patrick Mahomes. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 26th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving corps.
I don't think Hardman plays this week, so that would at least give us.
Oh, really?
He's still not practicing. Mind you, anyone watching this, Thursday night or Friday or Saturday morning, it's Thursday, 11:14 on the East Coast right now. So we don't have practice data or participation information for Kansas City or most teams, but for Thursday at least. But he wasn't practicing. Reed said the injury wasn't responding the way he thought it would. So I wouldn't be shocked if he sits out again.
Yeah, he posted some cryptic tweet, marathon over sprint. I guess that implies that he's waiting for his body to fully heal. Okay, so maybe something to watch here. Noah Gray, they've been using Travis Kelce as a decoy all year long, which gets their secondary tight ends open as well. If you want 2.5K access to the Chiefs offense, you actually have a viable option. Still, the expected fantasy points are around 3 per game here. That's kind of the best we can do.
The boy from Cali said, can't trust the pass catchers from KC. Good luck figuring it out. Same as the running backs. So, yeah, you can't trust them in the sense of it is difficult to figure out who it's going to be. You're never going to get an argument from me there, dude. I've been saying that all season long, that it's been a pain in the ass. But they have a 31-point implied total. It's the highest on the slate by 3 points. We only have 4 games and 8 teams to choose from.
As we're talking about it, though.
Real quick. Just also, they're not expensive. So I get it. If you're playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, it's tough. But Juju's 5,100 on DraftKings. Kadarius Toney's cheap. McKinnon's not that expensive. MVS is in the basement as far as salary goes. You're going to have to take some shots on this team.
I think you have to. Okay, but I'm looking at it more. And Sky Moore is also an option now. But what if you did something wild like Patrick Mahomes and then a bunch of Jaguars? And
naked Mahomes?
Maybe. Maybe this is more for a large field. But if you just put Mahomes and you don't play the guessing game, but you want to game stack this, and then you go with the heavy hitters from Jacksonville. Maybe you grab 2 of Kirk and Engram, or Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, or ETN and Zay Jones. I don't know. I think it's fine to just have 3 players from this game, but if you just don't want to play the guessing game, play Patrick Mahomes and these high expected fantasy points Jaguars. But the more that I'm thinking about it, that might be an interesting way to play this one.
I can't help but look at Travis Kelce and just, the big game hasn't been there in a while. He hasn't scored since week 12. Are we to assume that Travis Kelce isn't good anymore? Of course not. That game will come before this season lets out, and it might be this week. So he's very popular, of course. But I honestly, and this might sound crazy to some people in chat, it shouldn't, but I think just given the matchup, given their implied total, I think Travis Kelce rivals all of the top tier receivers as well.
I think so too.
And ownership would suggest that I'm not wrong about that, at least not right now.
Absolutely not. He just has incredible ceiling potential, even if we just haven't seen it for a minute. He was still second in the NFL among tight ends in yards per route run. 8.8 yards per target is fantastic. Number 1 among tight ends in yards after the catch. Number 1 in targets, number 2 in air yards. This guy's still at the top of his game. And yes, the crazy ceiling hasn't been there, but he's still performing right around expectation over the last 7 weeks of play. And like I said, we're talking about a below average defense in Jacksonville against the pass. We saw it in the first half. Herbert and company were carving them up. Say what you will about the second, but maybe Mahomes and Kelce are really just the answer here. And we're swirling around a whole bunch of nothing for these other players. It's possible that no one goes with Mahomes with a big game, but I do think you want to take at least one. And outside of Kelce, it's just really, really hard.
It absolutely is. But again, the one caveat to all of that is they're all cheap outside of Travis Kelce on a team with a 31-point implied total. Like against the 30th ranked pass defense, they're all cheap outside of Kelce. So I think if you're looking for value, maybe taking that risk isn't the worst thing in the world. We can go on. We'll get to this next game in just a second, but I wanted to ask you, if you're stacked, like what is your favorite way to stack this game?
My favorite way to stack is to just start Mahomes, Kelce, and then get creative from there, right? Like you can still fit McKinnon in. You could still fit one of these Jacksonville players in. Travis Etienne sitting there with a fantastic expected fantasy points per game. And Zay Jones is the run back that I prefer if you are stacking up two Chiefs players, because his expected fantasy points per game, 5th highest among wide receiver, higher than Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, which you might not expect just considering how they actually roll out those wide receivers.
Yeah. And just last thing, ownership is going to be high on guys like Kelce and Juju. So if you are taking the approach of like, hey, maybe all these guys are decent, but not great, even though Mahomes is great, I get that too. Totally understand that. Like if you're saying, well, why do I need to take a shot on a 25% on Juju when maybe he just has another modest output? That makes sense as well. Mm-hmm. Totally makes sense. New York and Philadelphia. Before we get to that, Matt, PrizePicks. How about the fact that you're getting $100 first match deposit bonus and you're getting $120 value subscription entire month to Stokastic Plus? Can you ask for more than that? I don't even know why I'm asking you. The question's rhetorical.
It's an amazing place. Also, it's really just a nice interface. It looks awesome over there. Just great stuff over at PrizePicks.
All you're doing is building lineups with player props. There's no juice on either side. It's just the over or the under. You're putting them into a lineup. It would be considered a parlay on your traditional books, except in this case, if you don't hit all of them, you still make money. If you're doing a 5 prop lineup at PrizePicks and you hit 4 of 5, you're still 2xing. You still make money back if you hit 3 of 5. If you hit all 5, you're 10xing. If you go on a 6-player lineup, you're 25xing. But what a difference that makes. Whereas in other book, they're like, oh, you hit 4 or 5. Good job. You get 0 money back. Not at PrizePicks. You can mix as many sports as you want. They have an insane assortment of props too. Like they have more props over there than I see at most large sports books. It's amazing. If it's available to you, and it should be if you're in non-legal betting states. So we'll talk about finding a way to scratch that itch. PrizePicks is the way to make it happen. You're getting $100 first match deposit bonus. You got to use the link in the description or in chat if you want to get this stuff. $100 first match deposit bonus. And you only have to deposit $10 if you want to get $10 deposit bonus, go for it. But it's up to $100. And you're getting all of our tools for an entire month. So if you're someone out there that's grinding, that's trying to get there, I'll talk to you about BetMGM later. But if you're someone that's grinding and you want to check our tools out, but you haven't done so yet because you don't think you can't afford the $120 a month, or you don't think it's worth it given your volume, now you don't have to at all. Get every tool for every single sport that we have to offer right here using that link at PrizePicks. Straight no-brainer, legitimately does not take any sense to do this. Take advantage of it. Links in the description and in chat. All right, let's talk about let's talk about a little bit of New York Giants action here. 7.5-point dogs coming off a big win against the Minnesota Vikings, paper tigers. The Minnesota paper tigers is what they really are. But interesting spot this week going up against the rested Philadelphia team. They got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. We'll talk about the offense in a moment, but how do you approach a guy like Barkley today when him and Christian McCaffrey are essentially the same price?
Look, it was awesome to see Saquon Barkley balling out. Honestly, this whole Giants team balling out against the Minnesota frauds. But ultimately, I think that they're in for a pretty rude awakening. I think they're against a Philadelphia defense that should get the job done. But it's almost like what we were talking about with Travis Etienne, where if the Giants are going to try to pull off the upset, it's probably because running and defense, and I do mean running from Daniel Jones as well, got them there. So Saquon Barkley having a huge game goes a long way for them pulling off the upset. If you want to build around that narrative in a playoff game, especially against division rivals, it's the third time these two teams are seeing each other, I'm fine doing that. His projection is only at salary-based expectations, which at running back 2 on the slate makes him more than playable. It's just a ton of risk involved, especially compared to someone like McCaffrey.
You know who I like quite a bit here? Richie James.
Anyone in the slot for these Giants players, I'm down with.
Exactly. No Avonte Maddox, at least he's not expected to play. Still not practicing for Philly. So would you rather contend with Darius Slay and James Bradbury outside? Or would you rather find ways to get somebody like Richie James, who's lining up in the slot like 85% of snaps? Would you rather get that? I think Richie James at sub 4K is a pretty solid option here. I really do. We saw him earlier in the season, week 14 against Philly, 7 for 61 and a touchdown. He's had some decent games. He's heavily involved in the offense. You know, I know that Isaiah Hodgins has had some big performances. I know Darius Slayton is still like the de facto number 1, but I think Richie James, if you're looking at the passing game here, makes the most sense. Also, more of these short intermediate routes against an Eagles team that clearly has a distinct advantage in the trenches. One of the best pass rushes. They had 486 sacks this season. Like, this does set up, it profiles pretty nicely for Richie James if you're looking for a discounted sub 4K receiving option this week.
Yeah, I mean, based on the usage last week for the Giants, it's really 4 horses. Slayton, Hodgins, James, Barkley, and everyone else is a low opportunity player. The tough part is Jones does tend to scramble even when he drops back. He only actually threw 35 passes, had 52 total opportunities. He took off either in a designed rush or scramble 17 times last week. Look, I think Richie James is fine, but I'm not going to ignore 9 targets for Isaiah Hodgins either. And he's still sitting at just 13% ownership. We've got him as a positive leverage play. And that's all without saying Darius Slayton might end up being the guy with the most targets, the most ceiling potential. I'm just really interested to see, do the Giants play to their opponent, which to me indicates that they desperately need to run the ball, whether that's Jones or Barkley, or do they play the way that they were so effective, passing on early downs? Was that more about the Vikings or more about the way that Brian Daboll and company want to play in this playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that Vikings defense is terrible. The way that the Giants win games is they keep them low scoring, you know, in large part throughout the season. That's what we've seen. But yeah, this game's so difficult for me because if the Giants go down early, then you're really forced. Your hand is forced. We saw that in week 14. We've seen that with them against the Giants or the Lions as well. We've seen that with the New York Giants. If not, though, like they got a Dory Jackson back. Dude shut down Justin Jefferson last week. Lined up against him 85% of the time, essentially shadowed him all game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is interesting. Like they are getting healthier. Their defenses looked better. They haven't exactly faced a ton of good opponents, though. You can look through that. They haven't faced, but you know, Daniel Jones and the Giants stack, is that something you're looking at?
I think as a contrarian large field play, it's not off the board, but it's not really something I'm excited to get to like I was last week. It's really hard to kind of gauge this defense too for the Giants because I really didn't see them shutting down Justin Jefferson. And it came at the expense of a huge game from Hawkinson, but no one else really stepped up for Minnesota and it cost them ultimately. I just think that Philadelphia is a much differently built team. They are top 5 on defense and offense through many, many different metrics. And really this comes down to exploiting little nuances, little one-on-one matchups that they know because they faced this team twice already. I honestly think that one of the best ways to do it is just run with Jones and Barkley all day long, in which case I would only be single stacking, choosing one of Hodgins, Slayton, or Richie James. But if they play like last week, I'm going to be wrong. If Daniel Jones has 52 total opportunities, he's absolutely viable and you can take one player with him.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. On the other side, you know, does Wink Martindale try and shut down A.J. Brown? Because if he does, I think people underestimate how good of a pass catcher Dallas Goedert is, by the way, just because he missed a bunch of games and because they have an embarrassment of riches at Jalen Hurts' disposal in this offense. I think it's easy to underestimate how good he is. And you have Devontae Smith, who came on really strong late in the season, finished with almost 1,200 receiving yards, had a great second year. But Dallas Goedert, man, this guy leads all tight ends in yards after the catch per reception. He's third in raw yards after the catch this year, and he missed 5 games. So like, he is the type of guy that, blitz heavy scheme with Martindale. Do they do what they can to take AJ Brown out? I don't know if that's in the cards, because Devontae Smith is better than Adam Thielen for sure. So now you've got a quarterback who can run. He was essentially instructed not to run last week or in week 18. They just get the win, vanilla offense. He can run. They have a great offensive line. Miles Sanders is efficient. You have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Like, you don't just take AJ Brown out of the offense and slow them down like you can do with Justin Jefferson. So how do you approach that?
Exactly. They have a much tougher job this weekend because they have 2 legitimate wide receivers, and the tertiary option, Dallas Goedert, as you mentioned, is better. And they still have speedsters like Quez Watkins. They can get Gainwell going out of the backfield, and Miles Sanders doesn't suck either. Just comparing the big three's expected fantasy points per game, like I was doing for the Jaguars, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith are up at 36 expected fantasy points per game since week 13. And they're performing at almost 8 fantasy points over expected per game as a group. Now, the efficiency has mostly been with Smith and Brown recently, but it could easily go with Goddard. The Giants, yes, they had an impressive performance last week. They ended up 24th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing receiving cores and 20th to wide receivers. So, look, this isn't a great defense, isn't a great secondary. They did a good job last week, but this is a tough ball game. Honestly, I think you can double stack Jalen Hurts this week. I think you might see him run a little bit less because he doesn't want to fall accidentally on the shoulder. Maybe that's speculation. Maybe you can just play it. Smith, Brown, and Goddard are talented enough, and on paper should have some exploits here that you can double stack just fine.
I'd love to know why OXanon says this is very biased advice re Eagles.
Just going with the implied totals, honestly, and just the metrics look really good for the Eagles comparatively.
Yeah, 28-point implied total. To say that they have a ton of weapons would be an understatement at this point. They have a 1,200-yard receiver, essentially a 1,500-yard receiver, a good tight end, 1,000-yard running back, and a quarterback who was leading the MVP odds before the injury. So,
if anything, you're wearing your Eagles t-shirt, literally making you aware of your bias so you can actively work against it. And as someone, you are a self-proclaimed Eagles hater sometimes because you can't stand the idea of them possibly doing well. But
right. Ray said it the best, though. He said, if with me, if I say anything positive against the Eagles, I'm biased. That's like, yeah.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
But do you have any, just based on what we saw last week, do you have any concerns with AJ Brown? Like, do you think they try to take him out of this? That's where I'm having a tough time. Like, do they try to slow him down and say, we'll let everyone else beat us? Or does this like have to be an all hands on deck for every position type thing? Because that's a big deal going into a 4-game slate.
I personally think if they do the JJ treatment, the Justin Jefferson treatment with AJ Brown, they will get torched this weekend.
That's what I think.
I think they'll get ruined because Smith and Goddard are better right now than Thielen, Hawkinson. They just are. I don't know how you do it. I think you just have an all-world game from the defensive line. You get to the quarterback a ton. You don't let deep routes develop. You force the ball inside. But even that way, you could pair Hurts up still with a player like Quez Watkins, because if there is a close game situation or if the Eagles get down, you will see Hurts take off and he could absolutely bring one of these receivers with him, even in a close game or losing effort. In that case, I would probably want to get to some of these lower salary options like a Watkins or even like Boston Scott or someone like that. But no, I don't think you see the Giants defense do what they did last week, is to answer your question.
Okay. Sammy, what's up, Buffalo War Pig? Said Dave L called the blowout in Tampa. Unless you're talking about another Dave L. No, I did not. I did not think that game was going in that direction. I was flat out wrong about that one, but thanks for the super chat, Sammy. Lynn said, don't need help to slow down A.J. Brown. Giants were without their quarterback one and free safety both games. I know, I said that. I know, depleted secondary. They were without Adoree Jackson. I know. But what Matt and I, that's not lost on us. What we were saying is that they still have a bunch of other options in the passing game and a mobile quarterback. I do like Sanders as well. I think, what is he, 5,700? I have no problem going to Sanders in a spot like this. He's clearly just at this stage of the game, a boom or bust option. Like we saw 2 30-plus fantasy point games, weeks 12 and week 14 against the New York Giants, 17 for 144 and 2 touchdowns, and then just fell off a cliff. Nick Sirianni's play calling was egregious in a lot of those spots, but 5,700 on Sanders at a running back position that goes from, you look at the way the pricing is, McCaffrey and Barkley up there, and then you have Mixon and ETN at 6,500. There's no real clear-cut options in that 6K range, in the 5K range. So I think Sanders is fine. Do I love him? No, he's not a pass-catching back. That sucks. But I think he's perfectly reasonable at 17% ownership.
He's one of these people that in main slates, I might overlook him. But I have to mention Sanders because absolutely nothing looks wrong on paper. It's just that nothing looks overwhelmingly great. I am whelmed by Miles Sanders this week. I mean, he's running back 6 in our projections, running back 7 in salary rankings. We've got his optimal lineup percentage within 2 percentage points of his expected ownership. That's just fine, even if the leverage score is slightly negative. And his expected fantasy points, 7th among running backs, the same exact thing as his salary ranking. Everything's just fine. The Giants were 20th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position as well. Nothing overwhelmingly good, but nothing bad at all.
So what you're saying is the thought of rostering Miles Sanders has you gruntled.
I'm a little gruntled,
okay.
But I wouldn't be disgruntled.
No, of course not. Let's talk about Cincy and Buffalo here. Also, 5 free days of all of our NFL tools. Matt, not 3 days anymore. This isn't just Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Of course, Monday doesn't count, but you're getting every showdown, every slate, main slate for Saturday. You're getting all the tools, ownership, top stack tool, boom bust tool, the showdown top plays tool, the NFL lineup generator, which now has the ability to change everything based on how you think the game goes. So you can adjust it for that before you run lineups, before you generate lineups. Let's say you thought Dallas was going to smoke a team last week or the Bucs last week. You can adjust for that before it builds your lineups to get lineups with that similar build. So with showdowns, how cool is that? And we're going to have 4 different considerably sized showdown slates as we always do in these divisional round weekends. You can adjust it for how you think it's going to go and then run it again for a like say you're playing 10 lineups, then you can run it again for, competitive, low-scoring game, and you'll get lineups built that way. Pick the ones you like. It's awesome. You guys, it's free for the first 5 days anyway. Check it out. So is the lineup builder and all of our tools, but you're getting everything for every slate. Do it on a Thursday today or even a Friday. Familiarize yourself with the tools. Learn these tools, and then be ready to rock for Saturday. Have your lineups built for Sunday, for the showdown, for the Sunday main slate, all that good stuff. Links in the description. Got to use the link in the description or in chat. Get all 5 days free. And if you hate it, we will gladly refund your misery, which is exactly $0. All right, let's talk about Cincy and Buffalo. Week 17, DeMar Hamlin happened. This game ended up not happening. First quarter, 7-3 Cincinnati. It's as if it never happened as far as the box score goes. Cincinnati's a 5.5-point dog. I was kind of surprised by that.
Look, there's so much drama about this game for obvious reasons. Let's not go into it. Let's just go into the fact that this should be an unbelievable football game. The Cincinnati Bengals,
I'm very excited for this game.
The Cincinnati Bengals have a chip on their shoulder. They have a legitimate reason for one. They could have if we are in a different timeline, been a 1 seed this year. Bottom line is they get to show everyone that last year wasn't a fluke, that they can go into Buffalo and beat Buffalo right now. They've got the team to do it. The big thing here is they have to protect Joe Burrow. The Ravens were flying off the edge last week, and Joe Burrow just didn't have time. If you don't have time, you're not going to score points, even if you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I'm not really that scared of Buffalo's secondary in the way I was in previous seasons. I'm still thinking of them as a slightly above average pass defense, but I don't think of them anymore as an absolute shutdown team. We saw Skylar Thompson and company hang around. I know that Miami team knows them well. Give them credit as well.
Well, they left points. They left points and yards on the board too. Jalen Waddle dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, the Bills moved up in DVOA rankings and stuff like that, and they're 4th in yards per pass attempt. But I hate to move to the eye test. Watching that game, I saw exactly what you saw, which is points available for an offense that is, especially with Skylar Thompson at the helm, way worse than the one coming into town this week. I think Jamar Chase is just fine, but he's a contrarian play. He's at wide receiver 4 in our projections. He's wide receiver 1 in salary. T. Higgins is the one even that I thought would be good at 5,800. We've got a slightly negative leverage score on him. I kind of disagree. I think this game has shootout potential. I think Buffalo's defense is a little bit inflated, dare I say. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals have a huge chip on their shoulder. I think they play a great game.
And T. Higgins, I mentioned this to Ben yesterday. T. Higgins, if he really is 7% owned or like around that, high single digits, now that his price has come, so his price has finally become untethered to Jamar Chase. You look at that before.
That's true.
Remember when Chase was out, it took so long once Chase came back for those, I should say decoupling, for so long for those price points to really drift further apart. Now you're looking at T. Higgins though, and he's way cheaper than Jamar Chase this week. I'm interested if we're getting a really low-owned, inexpensive T. Higgins at $5,800 in a game with a high total. I'm not super worried about the weather there either. Might be snow showers. Both these teams can play in cold weather. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention is that, hey, this is a great, another pitch for that 5-day trial if you're new over at Stokastic, because you can see how our ownership projections and our projections for these teams sort of morphs during the week. Now, it's a little bit different during the playoffs, but especially during the main slate during the regular season, you'll see them shift from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as we get more information. Right now, I'm looking around the industry, and Joe Burrow's ownership projection seems wildly low, to the point where I think it's way off. And I know that he is quarterback 8 in our rankings and quarterback 4 in salary, and most people are seeing his projection lower than salary-based expectations. But I guarantee you there's going to be more people playing Joe Burrow than the algorithmic ownership alone says. So we're gonna sort that all out by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday for sure. As you start locking these lineups, I still think these stacks with the talent of Chase and Higgins and Boyd are so interesting. I will say the decoupling of the salaries is worth it, because right now Higgins is at wide receiver 11 in expected fantasy points. Jamar Chase, his opportunity value, his expected fantasy points per game since week 13, highest among all wide receivers on the slate.
Okay. All right. I dig it. I don't love Jamar Chase though, Matt. I'm sorry. I don't love Joe Mixon.
He's been chirping a lot over the last few weeks. And look, I think he's just being a soundboard for his team, the way his team feels, and he's trying to be a team leader. But Mixon, the opportunity value lets me play him because his 14 expected fantasy points are the second highest among all running backs. But I still want Barkley or McCaffrey, and you got to pay for his services like that amount. It's $6,500, 13% of the salary cap. He's going to be a negatively leveraged player when we go into the weekend. Again, he falls into that contrarian narrative for sure, but I still want to play the passing attack over Mixon. And he's still switching out for P. Ryan in key situations.
Yeah, I know.
He's not unplayable, though.
I like Gabe Davis on the other side of this game, too. Cincinnati is 6th against wide receiver ones. They're 31st against wide receiver twos this season. Gabe Davis is actually, I don't know. I understand why we were frustrated with him. I've been frustrated with Gabe Davis, no doubt. I played a lot of discounted Gabe Davis, and it hasn't worked out. But over the last month, over the last 4 games, Gabe Davis leads the team with a 23% target share, 21% target share on a good passing offense since week 10, 7.1 targets per game. And how about this, Matt? This to me was crazy. Since week 10, he has 20 deep targets, so 20 plus yards downfield. The next closest player on that team is Diggs with 14. You want to talk about just an ability to blow up a slate or blow your lineups up as well. Gabe Davis could definitely fall flat on his fucking face, but 20 deep targets over his last 9 games, or 8 or 9 games, that just the ceiling game is possible with Gabe Davis.
Absolutely. This is a team with another trio of players with over 30 expected fantasy points, meaning that you could play 2 or even 3 of them if you're leaning really hard into this team. Gabe Davis at 12.5 expected fantasy points per game since week 13. So that those deep targets and when and where those are happening on the field, that's adding up to real value. It's now more than Stephon Diggs since week 13. Now, Diggs is right behind him. Don't get me wrong. And I still think the projection being higher for Diggs will always make sense. But Davis is a great tournament play, in my opinion. He's showing up in the optimal lineup for the main slate on DraftKings a quarter of the time right now in our Sims. So that makes his 22% ownership totally justifiable, even if he is a boom bust player. If you want to go away from him, play a player like Dawson Knox, who hit again against Miami, I'm fine with that. But I think 4,800 is a very fair price for Gabe Davis if you want to move away from the more obvious play like Diggs.
How do you approach the backfield here between Singletary and Cook? Now, Singletary did see a pretty significant edge as far as snaps went last week, but I'm not sure, even though it was a playoff game, I'm just not convinced week to week that we can really put our finger on the pulse of this backfield, especially since Cook did still out-touch him on the ground 12-10.
This is tough because Nyheim Hines is also playing well enough on special teams and in limited usage where he might get more gadget plays going forward. Isaiah McKenzie, who I believe has an injury, but I think is going to play, also takes away from the certainty in this backfield somewhat. I think we're kind of grasping at straws. I'm surprised in the Sims right now that at least one of Singletary or Cook shows up in 20% of our optimal lineups. To me, if I want access to the rushing attack from the Buffalo Bills, I'll just play Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, he has a rushing prop this week that is essentially the same as Devin Singletary's, and Devin Singletary isn't exactly heavily involved in the passing game either. Last I looked, Josh Allen was 44.5 rushing yards. I think the over was juiced to minus 140 in that spot. And I think
that's kind of fun, Sweat.
Yeah. And I think here, I'll tell you right now, Singletary 43.5, minus 105 on the, so under is juiced to minus 125. Josh Allen 44.5, the over at minus 140. So essentially, yeah, more rushing yards projected for Josh Allen than Devin Singletary this week.
That kind of tells you, that means that really we're kind of looking at them as only value plays. So what do they need for a 3x value at their respective salaries? It's essentially 15 points for both players. It would be nicer to get closer to 16, 17 for Singletary. They're at 8 expected fantasy points per game each. It's kind of a tough ask, and you're basically like a tight end asking for an extra touchdown.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't really love the backfield here. I mean, maybe Cook breaks.
Not unplayable.
What?
Not unplayable, but
no, 4-game slate, of course not. But there's also a lot of ways that you don't have, like, you are not your hand will not be forced to play a dirt cheap running back this week. Specifically on DraftKings, they've intentionally priced a lot of these players down everywhere.
So it's an interesting slate in that regard. That's why I was trying to, especially in that Jacksonville, Kansas City game, don't be afraid to get chalky with a single stack, because you can get weird here. You don't have these huge salary constrictions this week like you usually do.
Yeah, not at all. All right. Let's should we wrap this one up? Dallas and San Francisco?
Let's do it.
All right. By the way, we have Josh Allen over on Stokastic. Our projections have Allen with 50 rushing yards, James Cook with 46, and Singletary with 43. That's not what you're looking for when you want to attack a backfield, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe a couple catches changes things, but again, it's sort of like how we talk about tight ends. You attach it to an offense, you hope they score a touchdown, you can't sweat it if they don't. But the difference is you're paying more in salary at the least you're paying that Cook's $4,400. It's a tough ask.
It really is. One last thing for you guys before we close this out. We got over 300 people watching with us. I know a lot of you guys will watch after the fact. We love having you no matter when the time is. Throw out all of our offers, the 5 free days, the PrizePicks offer, but also for those of you where PrizePicks isn't available, we want you guys to check our tools out. Like I told you guys, I'm transparent with you through and through. Like, we want you to check our tools out. We want to give you guys an opportunity to win. And then hopefully you stick around because the tools have helped you become a better player. They've helped you win money. If you use the link for BetMGM, Mike can throw it in the chat. It's in the description as well. Assuming it's available in your state. And it is available in almost any state that betting is legal. All you need is 2 minutes of your time and $10 to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Every single sport, every single tool, everything we have on the site, completely free for 2 months, $240 value. You're saying, I want to get in the Hall of Fame. I'm rocking the Stokastic avatar, but I can't afford it right now. I can't pay for that monthly subscription, grinding out the first down or like the quarter arcade. But I do have $10 and I can click on a link and I can put that $10 on any game that I want, because that's all that needs to happen. You take the $10, you take 2 minutes of your time, you sign up, you put it on any game that you want, any side, total, whatever, player prop. And when you do that, just make sure the odds aren't crazy. Like, do a standard bet. Just do a standard type bet. And once that settles, boom, 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Not to mention that first bet you make, first bet insurance up to $1,000. So whether it's 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000, if you lose, all of that comes back in bonus bets. So not only are you getting the 2 free months, you're also getting first bet insurance. Yeah, makes sense. Check our tools out. Join our Discord. Use it for every sport, even sports you're not confident in. That's why you have the tools. Whether it's MMA, PGA, NASCAR, whatever. Doesn't have to be the big ones. We got you covered across the board. $240 value, $10. Check it out. Link in the description. Follow the easy steps. And should be 21 or over to gamble. And what was the other one? Oh, yeah. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Matt. Dallas. Tough matchup. Ben kind of likes the Cowboys this week, though.
Well, after last week, seriously, the Super Bowl is the limit for an offense and a defense like that. I'll just say it the way it is. Dak Prescott at 28.7 expected points added, the highest among all players on Wild Card Weekend. That's absurd. His his decision making, his accuracy was some of the best I've ever seen, and we can go to town on what Tampa Bay needs to do over the offseason to fix things, because they looked absolutely lost. If this Brett Maher thing didn't happen, this would have been just essentially a flawless game from the Cowboys. And if you're playing flawless on Wild Card Weekend, you have a shot to do big things. They are playing the toughest team in the entire divisional round, especially on the NFC side. I think San Francisco is absolutely rolling. They're an absolute machine. The only hope is Prescott playing out of his mind again.
I think this game could shoot out. I know it sounds
that
wild.
Would be fun.
And by the way, Lance Dunbar said, did the trial this past week, finally placed first for the first time. small $500 single entry. That's awesome, dude. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, you're using tools that every pro player is using, but you can use them for small. Talk about an advantage there, using them in low stakes, having those tools at your disposal at a massive discount. Yeah, but congrats, dude. That's awesome. You know what's crazy? I'm looking at this. I was doing my best bets video for every game. It's on the Odd Shopper channel. It'll be up tonight. I threw a side in for every game and props for every game. I love making that. It's fun. And I'm looking at this going, dude, when is the last time the Niners have faced a good team? Listen, I'm not shitting on them. They're very good. A very, very, very good football team. They rout bad teams. Okay.
I hear what you're saying. They out execute from Monday to Saturday a lot of teams. They absolutely do.
No doubt. But when's the last time they faced a good team? Kansas City?
Yeah.
Week 7? You could say Chargers, but the Chargers are the Chargers.
You're absolutely right.
Look at that schedule.
The Chargers, a playoff team in week 10, we'll count them. But you're right. This defense gave up 44 points week 7 to Kansas City. And it's also a little different when you're facing a divisional opponent in the wild card round. Just we've kind of talked about it all show long. Just the amount that a team heading into divisional weekend makes the uncertainty, the range of outcomes for those games a little wider. And also there's the narrative that, Dallas and San Francisco had a very, very close game last year so Dallas kind of feels like they can compete with this team. On paper, it does look like San Francisco is the superior team, but not by much. That defense came to play for Dallas. And if that defense can swarm Brock Purdy or at least create turnover opportunities, they could flip the narrative really quickly here. I do kind of like this shootout narrative here, but because if you have that, you have so many options to choose from, so many interesting mid-tier and top-tier options.
At low ownership, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, maybe it doesn't. Definitely might not. Football Outsider says the Niners overall defensive DVOA first and Dallas second. So 2 good defenses, no doubt. But I still think Dallas can put up some points. If Dak doesn't turn the ball over, that's what it comes down to. Dak has to be, he doesn't even have to be surgical. He just needs to not turn the ball over. And if that's the case, I still think you're looking at some potential spots here. I don't love the run game, but I don't hate Tony Pollard. I think this is all I'm saying. When you're talking about a 4-game slate, right? And this is kind of where Ben was going. And I get what he's saying. Talking about a 4-game slate, playoff teams, good teams, right? The Dallas is the 5th seed, but only because the Eagles are the 1st seed in the same division. They won 1 more game. Or was it 2 more games at the end? I can't even remember at this point. But 1 more game?
One. I think it's 1.
1. What? Yeah. Okay. But besides, they're a good football team, and the Bucs stink. We saw that under the lights. But Dallas looked really good in that game. If you're getting Pollard really at 12%, which is very low, I do think there's value here just based on ownership alone.
Absolutely. And, you could get tricky by saying, like, this is the lowest total game on the slate. This is a very interesting slate in the fact that every single game has a 46-point total or higher. That's stratospheric when you're comparing it to the average total of a main slate game during the regular season. This game has way more shootout potential than the typical lowest total game on the slate, is what I'm saying. And, then let's just break it down from a player-based standpoint. Pollard, Elliott, Lamb, Gallup, Hilton, Brown, and Schultz, all of the key players for the Dallas Cowboys have projections at or ahead of salary-based expectations. So our simulations are showing that San Francisco's defense, while good, shouldn't shut down this offense entirely. That seems like a really good contrarian offense to bet on, maybe even a little double stack, especially when we're considering the ownership is going to be lower.
Very low, yeah. How do you approach a San Francisco team that, for the most part, it's been a low passing volume offense. You got amazing yards after the catch, amazing yak guy in Deebo Samuel, a great pass catching tight end in George Kittle. Of course, you have Brandon Ayuk. Kittle's the type of guy that like these guys need to produce, or at least they have needed to produce on low volume. But that's also because teams haven't been able to keep pace with them for the most part, outside of the Raiders with Jared Stidham a couple weeks back. And then, of course, you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield.
Just an insane amount of superstar talent and the opportunity value. Look, it's almost 50 expected fantasy points per game between those four players, McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle. The lowest expected fantasy points are actually to Kittle, but the dude just keeps on scoring and keeps on having just insane games. He's still, over the last 7 weeks, at 5 fantasy points over expected per game. That's almost a touchdown over opportunity expectations per game. I still think Debo is the one where he's the slate breaker other than McCaffrey, who's going to be super, super popular. But anytime I see a player at 40% ownership who our sims say, actually, that's not high enough, we're kind of burying the lead. McCaffrey's the best play on the slate.
I'm with you. He's just so good. He's so dynamic. He's an elite pass catching back. There's no two ways around it. I don't even think we need to dive much deeper into that, right? Like could McCaffrey have a 20-point game and not get you there? Sure. He's not a must play. We have him almost 40% owned right now, but he is the best option. And then honestly, Matt, I really think that with these pass catchers, you just have to hope they're efficient. If it's Debo or if it's Kittle or Ayuk, I'm not really sure how much more goes into this outside of, does Debo rip off one of those huge catch and runs? Does Kittle catch one downfield and work his magic after the catch? Does one of them get into the end zone twice on their 6 targets? That's basically what it is with this team in the passing game, right?
I think it's just plain old fun. Yes, it's tough when you're trying to win DFS with like one single entry lineup or something like that. But look, this team is so freaking talented all over the field offensively. I said they're incredible opportunity value numbers. They're averaging collectively 10 fantasy points per game over expected. I honestly was talking to a friend about this. Like, what an actual gift we get to get McCaffrey in his prime with Kyle Shanahan and with a player like Trent Williams on the line and with killer skill position players all around. I'm not taking anything away from the possibility that the Cowboys could pull off the upset. But this offense right now is a piece of art. And right now I have trouble fading it. I see people in chat saying full fade, I'm going under. I love when people take our narrative and say, actually, I want to go the opposite way here. That's what makes you a good and unique thinking DFS player. I love to see it. Man, I am going to have one of these 4 core 49ers in every single lineup.
All right. What a way to end the show, man. You can follow Matt at Draftaholic, me at Lavi_D. Remember, you want to get in the door, whether it's 5 free days, nothing down, whether it's PrizePicks, whether it's BetMGM, we want you guys to hang out, check out the tools, join our Discord, say hello, join an awesome burgeoning family over here at Stokastic. For real though, keeps getting better. Keep doing big things. We keep adding tools. We'd love to have you guys. There's a million different ways you can get in. Matt, any final thoughts before we head out for the day?
Just want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hit that like button too. It does help.
We
us
need
out.
6 likes. Did you hit it yet?
I actually need to do it. I'll do it right now.
We need 5 likes now. Mike, are you on that, dude? Because there's a beginning of the show. I don't slack. All right. We need 4 now, which means that Mike and Matt are both not done.
I hit it. I just hit it.
There we go. We're over.
But I appreciate you all. This was a fun as always. Let's just hope for as good a divisional round as we had last year, because that was unforgettable.
Yeah, man. Oh, the Buffalo Kansas City game.
Best football I've ever seen in my life.
Ooh, yeah. And yes, PrizePicks is available in Georgia for whoever answered that. Link is down there. All the links are down below. We love you guys. Thanks for getting us north of 100. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you back here next week. This is it. That is it. The championship round, down to 2 games, 4 teams. But until then, let's win some money. We'll catch you back here next Thursday. Peace.
See ya.